What's up guys, Tim Little, Matt Allen, welcome back to Tactical Bassin. This is part 2 of your guys' requested finesse fishing video buyer's guide. If you guys haven't seen part 1, we already covered rods and reels, specific models we like for certain techniques, so make sure you guys click the link down in the video description or up here and watch that video. Today we're going to talk about baits. We're going to talk about different baits for different techniques and the stuff that we have confidence in through the years.
This is going to be, I mean, the whole gamut. We grabbed things that we've got confidence in. Some of them are related, some of them are completely unrelated. We're just going to give you a rundown if you want to do some finesse fishing, stuff that works, that are worth your time if you want to try some different things where you live and where you fish. So
yeah, recently, down in the video, down in the comment section, you guys have been asking and suggesting a finesse fishing video, and we didn't know what you guys meant by that, so we did the gear, we did the rod and reels already, so we just grabbed some finesse stuff, some baits, some hooks, some techniques that we have confidence in, and then we'll talk to you guys about today. It's kind of a broad video description,
and it's a broad video. But yeah, here we go. All right. So first thing I'm going to talk about is that 2.8 Kitech, little tiny swim bait, and we've talked about this in 15 videos this year. I mean, we throw it a ton. It works everywhere we go, coast to coast. That 2.8 Kitech is an absolute killer. Little tiny bait. Always rigged it on that Revenge dart head or a generic dart head, but that's the particular head that I like to use. But for you guys that are on the bank, I know that weedlessness is a major issue. About a month and a half ago, I noticed these on a store shelf, scooped a pack of them up, and they worked flawlessly. That Owner Flashy Swimmer that we use for the big Kitechs, it comes in a 1/0. Somehow I had always missed that. It works perfectly on that 2.8 Kitech, so you're rigging weedless. You're getting that underspin profile, you're getting that flash, that extra movement, but you're weedless, so if you're stuck on the shore worried about snagging up or you're fishing around grass, that's a killer option that we had not talked about previously.
That 2.8, I don't know if we've addressed this in other videos or not, but it is also a killer drop shot bait. One of my favorite ways to catch suspended fish is to fire out a drop shot with the swim bait on there, close the bail, and let that thing just fall. It's out there, it's gonna pendulum down through the school, and as that thing's falling, that tail's kicking, that swim bait is swimming, and they eat it.
You said drop shot, so let's talk drop shot hooks real quick. We use different hooks. Very similar concept, but when we're fishing that open exposed hook, I use a trocar, either a size 1 or a 1/0. Tim used a little bit different hook.
Yeah, I've always used the Owner mosquitoes, but they've since come out with a mosquito lighter wire, just better hook penetration on those real light lines, deeper fish, lighter rod tips. I usually use a 1 or a 2. Sometimes I'll go up to a 1/0 if I'm throwing on the little bigger baits, but that mosquito light is a great finesse drop shot hook.
That's a killer choice. I had always just drop shotted on whatever hook before I settled on the trocar. And it was actually when I was up on the Bay of Green Bay and we were fishing around zebra mussel beds that I discovered how drastic the difference was between hooks. Because some hooks would snag up constantly because as soon as you'd slack them, the hook was so heavy your bait would just fall down onto the bottom and get stuck in the zebras. Other hooks, you'd shake that thing and kill it and pick right back up and you weren't snagged. And I realized how drastic the difference is between hooks. Both of those are killer options. Drop shot baits, you wanna go there?
Yeah, why don't you talk baits, I'll talk weights real quick. I don't drop shot unless I'm throwing a tungsten weight. I feel like it's a finesse presentation. You're using high quality rod, reel, line. Why would you lose your sensitivity with going a lead weight over a tungsten weight if you could afford the difference? So down below in the video description, we'll link to some tungsten weight drop shot weights. You do lose them, but you get so much more sensitivity of that harder metal.
Yeah. Now for drop shot baits, I'm gonna split it 3 ways. 3 different baits that I've got confidence in. First one is a Dream Shot. That's a Strike King bait. I absolutely love that thing. I love it on the Great Lakes. I love it on Clear Lake and everywhere in between. It flat catches fish. Second one is going to be that Robo Worm, that 4.5-inch fat worm. It's a short worm. Because it's the fat worm, it's got some profile to it. It's got some bulk, and I've just done extremely well with it. And then last one's going to be that Reaction Innovations Flirt Worm. Just another killer choice, great colors, great action.
You know, he kind of blew through that fairly quickly. Maybe it's because he's a swim bait fisherman, I don't know. But drop shot can't be wrapped up that easily. It depends on, do you want a wacky rig drop shot? What profile bait are you trying to mimic? So that's all gonna come into play when you're trying to figure out your baits. And time of the year. Is it springtime when fish are super active, or is it wintertime when fish are super lethargic and you want a bait that has less action versus more action? I fish all those baits that he just named. I like the Strike King, the half shell. That is a great, we've been doing it for years. We used to always cut the beaver in half and use that. It's a great a bluegill type of profile. Got the little dorsal fin on there, good tail action. The jackal, the crosstail shad, that's another good vertical. I like vertically fishing that bait. If I'm gonna be wacky rigging something, their new Nico rig. It's the skinny. You put an O-ring in there, and that's got a lot of action. You get more action out of the wacky rig baits. Do you wacky rig drop shot at all?
Yeah, totally.
Zoom trick worm, like what do you?
Only in the summertime with a trick worm.
Okay.
But of the three, I throw that same Robo Fat, but I throw it in the 6-inch, and then I wacky rig that one.
Yeah, the 4.5-inch fat is a great bait fish mimic. They actually make, I'm gonna draw a blank on it. It's Robo Worm's smaller shad profile worm. It's their Finesse one. That's also a good wintertime silverside or little shad imitator.
The Sculpin or the other one?
It's not the Sculpin. It's a little one. We'll link down to it. But those baits right there that we just talked about, the Reaction Innovations, the Kitech, the Strike King, those are all great baits for drop shotting.
Now, I've tried to protect you from Tim's finesse fishing prowess in the past. He kind of started to let it loose there. So down the road, we might do a full-blown finesse video, like a full-on everything you need to know about finesse or about drop shot or something. Tim, I don't know how he's kept a lid on it this long, but one of these days he is going to do an all-out video on finesse stuff and really send your head spinning, because that was we just opened the lid a little bit right there, just a little.
Yeah, we always tell you simplify it, keep it simple, and I'm the opposite on that, and it's probably too much.
But we're opposite on a lot of things, right? We do that with jerkbaits. We do it with lipless. We are way over the top on a lot of techniques. That was just a glimpse into if you really want to get serious about any one of these techniques, you can go really far with it, and it makes a difference. But you can be simple with it too if you want to. Can we move on? Can we leave drop shot?
Yeah.
Okay. Next one I'm going to talk about. I love throwing a jig, but we're talking finesse. So if you want a finesse option, you can throw it on a casting rod, you can throw it on a spinning rod. If you take a double tail hula grub, spider jig, whatever you want to call it, you can throw that thing on a ball head, a dart head, a football head, but you can throw it on such a little hook that you get that jig profile. You get a little better quality bite than you would on something a little smaller, but you're still able to do it on that really light line. You can throw it on 6-pound, 8-pound. You don't need to be throwing that jig on 15 or 17-pound line.
Right, and there's also some actual finesse jigs on the market. Dirty Jigs has one. I just got some of those to play around with. I think Missile Baits has one.
There's a bunch.
Kitech has them. Little tungsten, little tiny. So if you guys are looking at finesse jigs, we'll link down to some of those that you guys can check out and play with as well. Let's talk Ned.
Oh man, we're going there.
Let's talk to Ned Rig. Hopefully you guys know what a Ned Rig is. It came from back east. You know, typically the finesse techniques come from overseas or out west, but this one actually came from back east. And there's really only two Ned worms that I use. It's the actual the Z-Man, the TRD. That comes in two sizes. I throw the smaller one.
I do.
It's got that Elastec. You can see what Matt's doing right there. You can catch a lot of fish off of one bait. Really cool thing about this bait is it floats and it sits vertical.
Sits dead up.
The other bait I wanted to talk to you guys about real quickly is the new Robo Worm, Ned Rig worm. One thing you get with the RoboWorm that you don't get with the TRDs is the color selection. RoboWorm has so many cool colors. You can, shad presentations, your morning dawns for spotted bass and smallies. But if you guys haven't, I don't know that we've actually shot a Ned Rig video.
I don't think we have at all. We've been throwing it, we just haven't talked about it.
Okay, maybe we'll add that to the list.
Maybe we're too embarrassed to talk about it.
Yeah, maybe we'll add that to the list. But a Ned Rig is a great, on those days where you can't buy a bite, I've had my butt kicked by the backseat guy throwing a Ned Rig. It's just a do-nothing bait. I don't know if it's mimicking a goby or, I mean, it's obviously mimicking some kind of bait fish, but it's just a do-nothing.
It's just different.
Do-nothing.
It's just different enough, man. They just eat it. I'm right there with Tim. I mean, I don't like to downsize and finesse if I don't have to, but if I'm going to do it, you might as well go all the way. You might as well throw a Ned Rig. Just a little tiny mushroom head, comes in super light weights. One quick thing I will say about it is the Elastec specifically is really, really hard to get it to stay on the head. It wants to slide down a little bit. I super glue them on. Just a touch of super glue. Wait 10 seconds, let that thing cure up. Makes all the difference. I mean, if you don't lose the bait, it's an all-day bait. It's a 40, 50 fish bait. Once that thing's super glued on, it's there forever, which is really, really nice. You don't have to stock tons and tons and tons of them. But a very simple bait to fish. It's do nothing. Yeah, barely move it.
The heads we've always used are the actual Z-Man, the Finesse shroom heads. Comes in so many different sizes.
Strange sizes.
5th ounce, 6th ounce, 10th ounce, 15th ounce, 20th ounce. So you can get some really small finesse presentations on those.
But it does work. You got to try it if you haven't.
It does work. One last thing that I got, I'm trying to think real quick of what we talked about. We talked about Dropshot. We didn't really talk about darter head or ball head stuff. Any of these worms, any of the Dropshot worms, or any of these the jig trailers you could put on a ball head. We'll link to a video we shot maybe 2 years ago, like top winter baits or something. Ball heads have a different action than a darter head. It's a round action. It's just a more do nothing. It's a great wintertime head, whereas a darter head, you get that real erratic fall and darting around. But any one of these jig trailers or worms you could put on one of those heads as well. I'm going to talk about tubes real quick. I only grabbed one pack. I throw the Dry Creek tubes. My two absolute favorite colors are Old Ugly and Mud Pie. And if you just keep it simple, I use the Old Ugly. It's a do nothing ugly iridescent green. I use that on bright sunny days. I will use the Mud Pie, which is like a cinnamon purple brown goby-ish color. I use that on lower light conditions. But one thing I will say about the tubes, you guys back east throw, I think you might throw them too, the big fatties, where you put the 3/4 ounce head in there and you really, you stroke that tube, or you pop it. That's not how I'm fishing these. This is kind of like a worm. You're
real
just
finesse.
Real finesse. But again, adjust to your lakes and your conditions and what you need to throw. And we'll link to some of those tubes that you throw with the bigger heads.
Yeah. A couple other baits. If again, sort of like that jig, if you want that little bit bigger profile, or at least in that fish's mind a little bit bigger meal, that creature bait or that craw style bait, two that you can try, and you can rig them a bunch of ways. You can drop shot these, you can put them on a ball head, you can do anything with them. You really can. One is going to be a Kitech Crazy Flapper in that smallest size. You separate the appendages when you get it. They're all stuck together. You pop them all apart, and it just has tons and tons of movement. And fishes extremely well on like an ultralight Texas rig. There's a bunch of things you can do with it. And the other one is that Biwa, the armored craw. Again, you can drop shot it. You can throw it on a weighted head. It really doesn't matter. There's a variety of ways to rig it. But they're both tiny little baits. Tiny, tiny little craw / creature baits. But they get really good quality bites.
Trying to think what else we need to talk about.
I do believe these, since they're sitting here.
Spybait?
Spybait. Why not touch on it? It's kind of branching away from everything else. Everything else was sort of that
soft plastic,
slow moving. Spybait is the complete opposite, right? It's a reaction bait, mid column, hard bait. but
still finesse.
Still finesse. You can throw it on the exact same line. You can throw it on 4-pound line,
right.
6-pound line, 8-pound line. The two that we use are going to be the Duo and the Jackal. I actually did a dedicated video to these earlier this year, and I guess down in the video description, I'll give you a link back to that video. So I really won't go in depth at all right now. But those are the two that I like to throw. And again, you can throw them on super, super light lines. So if you want a completely different presentation than everything else you're doing, you can throw that in your finesse box, tie it onto the same rod. It doesn't matter if you're out on the boat or walking down the bank and you've only got one rod, you can throw that and get a very, very different look.
So hopefully that helps, guys. Hopefully that shed a little bit of light on the different finesse presentations, gave you a little bit of techniques, tips, and some of our favorite baits for those techniques. If you guys have more questions down below, leave them down in the comments and we'll try and get to them. But
and on this, if I can cut you off, on this video, use that video description, because we're going to spend hours putting links to all this stuff, because there are the different heads. There's so many different things. Right. We will lay it all out so you can find the stuff that we're talking about, because this is going in 14 different directions. So we're going to link everything and make it as simple as we can for you.
Yeah, we blew through it fairly quickly. If you guys want more in-depth videos on a specific technique, again, down below, let us know and we'll try and get that done as well. But again, guys, appreciate the support. Hopefully these videos, these buyer's guides, are helping you guys. From the comments and the feedback, it's all been great. So I think it's going well.
Yeah.
We keep getting asked about our apparel. Down in the video description, there'll be an email, TacticalBassinApparel@gmail. Well, you can link to that and send me an email, and we can get you squared away with hats and hoodies and sun shirts and all that good stuff.
And if you don't get a response in 2 hours, we did get your email, but it's literally Tim and his wife responded to those. So if we're out shooting video, you're not getting a response, but we did get the email and they will get back to you.
Cool, guys. Again, hope that helps. If you guys like that video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.